feeling like oddly nervous this morning, but I realized I haven't opened a meeting this year. So I might be part of it. And somehow it's like the 20th or something ridiculous already. So how's everyone doing this morning?
Good.
Good. So we're working our Wednesdays to Saturdays and Saturdays to Wednesdays. As always, if you have any U4 changes, if you move, change jobs, make sure you get those into access support. So this morning we're gonna keep working on what we started on Wednesday in terms of these conversations. But I want to share with you guys a little bit about our Thursday, which feels like it was a lifetime ago, but it was really on Thursday. So Thursday was a pretty big day in our business on the one hand, and on the other hand, it was really just an example of how using these conversations can move your business and how engaging in these tools over and over and over again can start to really make things happen. So Thursday morning, Brett and I went out to Manhattan Beach, and we were meeting with a friend of mine at a place called WeWork. Have you heard of WeWork? So WeWork is a co-working space. And so you can like rent a desk for an hour, or you can rent a conference room, or you can rent an office space, you know, for a 6-month period. It's all you know, sort of a workspace as you need it. And so the fun thing is you go in there and it's bright, and there's entrepreneurs everywhere. So there's a lot of energy, right? Everyone's like, it feels like they're in really important meetings, and they have good coffee. And my friend Jamie, I've been talking with Jamie about Primerica. She's been part of our Baseline 30 for a really long time. And she's been on the Primerica journey with us as we were discovering the access gap, right? And sharing about that and working with different folks and sharing different stories. But I never had talked to Jamie specifically about her needs and her family needs. She's divorced and has one child. And there were times when she would say, God, you know, I really should do that needs analysis thing. And I'd say, yeah, I know, when it makes sense, when you're ready. So she never felt any kind of sales pressure, right? And I was just developing a relationship over time. And now Jamie's come to a place, good morning, come on in. And now Jamie's come to a place where she's starting her own business. And in this business, what we do and the conversations we learn are about adding value, right? That's how we build the relationships. And the reason we want to spend so much time really learning our conversations about money and about the B2B platform, about the managed accounts, is because you never know which tool is going to be most helpful to someone in your life. And so now here I have a friend starting a business. And if you had a friend starting a business, what might be one of the conversations that we practice that you might have with them? What do you think, Dawn? What's a conversation you might have with someone starting a business?
Like an impact story
About what?
about their business and how they got their desire to start the business, and how they can articulate it clearly to somebody else.
So an impact story about how you started your business and how you could articulate it. What else? If you knew someone who was starting a business, what's another conversation you might have?
About goals, the benefits of getting wide.
The benefits of getting wide, right? That's a great one. And that is goals, right? But now listen to what you guys just said. You said the same thing, but Bob used our language for it. And that's one of the things we want to really focus on, right? Because getting wide is about setting goals. And so when you're talking to someone, you get to say, you know, one of the things, I've got a really great tool for setting goals, because that person doesn't know what wide is yet until you introduce it. And so it's like A-B, right? But you got to know the B, because that's the tool for setting goals that we have found to be incredibly successful in here, right? What's something else? What's something else that as a business owner that would be helpful? If you knew someone who was starting a business, what's another conversation that we have?
I want to go on the track of would you need information for the people in your business? Or does she have people in her business with her?
Just starting her business. Budgeting.
Say capital reserve, and
How about capital reserves, right? And what's your entrepreneurial budget, right? So that's where I went. You know, if you're gonna be starting a business, I was like, you know, have you thought about how much money you need to save? How much money you have? What's your entrepreneurial budget? What's your runway? Well, these are all conversations that you've had in here. These are conversations that are part of our skills list. And she was like, oh, that's really helpful. You think that you guys could come and sit down with me and teach me more about that? Sure. So we showed up at WeWork on Saturday morning to have a capital reserves conversation. And what we know flows instantly from the capital reserves conversation is your personal finances, right? Any single person in here who has a capital reserves conversation with any business owner would inevitably talk about their personal finances, because that's your entrepreneur's budget. And so we ended up in a very natural place to have that conversation. And she got to see our expertise in working with someone. And she said, you know, you've helped me so much this morning. Now, we didn't try to sell her our product, but will we sell her our product? Yeah. Eventually. She said, so tell me more about what you guys do. And so we went to the business-to-business platform conversation, because that's what we're doing, right? We're focused on providing the kind of information and advice that we just shared with you with employees across the country by going in and providing a full financial wellness platform to companies. Well, the company that Jamie is starting is an events planning company. And so she was talking about putting on events and bringing together speakers in content that is helpful to entrepreneurs. And in a series of conversations, she inevitably said, hey, would you and Brett be part of my first speaker series at WeWork with 30 to 60 new entrepreneurs? I mean, I suppose that would be interesting. So we left that conversation, one, with the starting conversation of capital reserves, the entrepreneur's budget, and setting up a financial needs analysis for her. She's divorced and has a good relationship with her ex. And so we talked about an introduction to her ex-husband, because that was just part of that next step of the relationship. And we'll be doing a financial needs analysis for him. And then we're going to be doing a financial wellness workshop at WeWork in Manhattan Beach. Now, WeWork actually has office spaces across California. So you could imagine, right, that as the wheels turn, what are those next steps in the relationship? Because now we have an opportunity to develop a relationship with the WeWork staff and to come in and to provide that value. But it all stemmed back to building the relationships, going through our baselines, and learning the conversations in the right moment, the right place, at the right time. So that was the first part. And any of you can have a Thursday like that. Any of you could imagine building those relationships and coming in and sitting down with a friend, starting a company to help them with goal setting and why, or to help them with their capital reserves. Because these are the tools that we're building in here. So in the 3/4 of the way through that conversation with Jamie, Brett had to leave and go take a call because we had the next part of our Thursday happen. So you guys all know that we have been working with Jive, the 401k at Jive. And that has been a bigger learning process than I think even we were prepared for, right? Because we were like, oh, we're going to land Jive, and then we have 400 people to talk to. And the people are there, but what you say and how you say it, Tig and I were just talking about this, right? I said, Tig, you've got thousands of people on a college campus to talk to. Tig's market, Tig said, I don't know where my market is. Great question. I said, Tig, your market's bigger than any of ours. Tig was like, what are you talking about? I said, after you finish economics on Friday, go walk outside. There's your market. But he's like, but what do I say? And how do I say it? I said, that's a good question. Let's figure it out. Because we don't have all the answers, right? We have the next level of a methodology for figuring out the answers, right? Because that's what we've been doing and perfecting for 5-7 years. You know, if we're experts at anything, it's what are the questions we ask to find the answers. Not that we have all of the answers. And we learned it again with Jive. You know, I thought we'll just pick up the phone and tell them over here. So let's get those F&As. And all these people were like, and who the hell are you? Right? And so we're taking a year to figure out when we go into a company, what do you say? What are the magic words? How many touch points does it take? How many emails? How many phone calls? Do we have to be in person? Can we do it over Skype? These are the things that we're figuring out. These are the things that we're going to figure out on a college campus for TAG. Well, we know that Jive is part of a group of companies, about 50 of them. And my client acquires companies all the time. And usually within 90 days, or in the case of Jive, 1 year, all of the HR, all of the human resources for those companies are all transferred to a single company that's named Crossover. And so basically they've aggregated all of their HR stuff into one company to service the 50 companies. That way every company doesn't have their own HR department. So all of the payroll runs through Crossover. All of the healthcare runs through Crossover. All of the 401k benefits run through Crossover. And so Jive will be finishing its transition to Crossover in June. And so we thought we have until June to figure this Jive thing out, because then we're going to lose Jive to the current 401k provider at Crossover. Does that make sense? And that current 401k provider Crossover services will be servicing Jive, but also services all the other companies and all the other employees and all the other companies. Well, they don't actually provide very much service, but in theory, that's what they're in charge of. And so we put together a plan to develop a relationship with the head of those benefits at Crossover when we figured out that this was going to be happening. So that was about 7 months ago. And we said, I had no relationship with the person who ran HR at Crossover. So there was no way, if we waited until Jive was going to go over, and then I picked up the phone and said, hey, wait, don't forget us. We were done. We were out. So we had to start building that relationship. So I started looking for reasons to talk to him. His name's John Goodman. And because I work with all of these other companies, I was coming up with reasons. You know, we've got some new employees in the new acquisition, and I want to talk to you about how we're going to transition them. Or tell me a little bit more about this and that. And by talking to him, and by talking with our 401k experts, we figured out that they had a hole in the plan that they currently have. And there was a legal hole in their current plan. And their current provider didn't tell them about it. And so talk about adding value, right? We're always looking to add that value. So we found the hole, and I talked to John, and I said, John, you've got a hole. And he said, okay. And I said, and I have just the person to plug the hole. Let me introduce you to my husband, Brett. Brett stays left, comes on in, right? And now Brett gets to have a conversation with John about financial wellness. And so Brett says, let me tell you how we're going to plug the hole, and then let me tell you about all the other things that we're able to do for you. Complimentary. And John said, Sounds good to me. And so on Thursday, we closed Crossover, which is very exciting. And so our team will become, over the next, as of April 1st, more or less, will become the financial provider to Crossover and all of their clients. In perpetuity, which means that as every new client comes on board, now, day one, we're just gonna be the new provider in town, right? But now Brett's gonna take his next 8 months and develop that relationship with John. And we're gonna work with John so that we have an onboarding process for every employee who comes on board and an offboarding process for everyone who leaves. And then we'll be able to leverage all that learning with all of our other clients that you guys build and bring in. So that was a big one.
Yeah.
But it was the same relationship building of the WeWork conversation. And it was the same business to business platform conversation that's part of our set of conversations that we're working on in here. So we got the WeWork gig, we got the Crossover gig, and now it's Thursday night, and I said, you know, we're already in the city. Why don't we see if we can have dinner with some friends of ours? Another relationship. He's an attorney, and he and I have been, I've sent him some really good referrals recently, and we built up a colleague relationship over time because we work with the same kinds of clients. He's a patent attorney, and we really enjoy their company. And we've gotten together about 4 times before this. So texted, we're in the area, want to grab a drink? They said, sure, great. And we went over. And Brett said on the way, are we going to tell them about Crossover? And I said, of course we're going to tell them about Crossover because we have something to celebrate. And we have an impact story. And it's not to get them to do anything, right? But this is how we let people know what's happening in our lives. Because if people know what's happening in our lives, there's more opportunity for shared support, right? We've established a strategic partnership with these guys. Every time I send a referral, he wants to give me referrals. And I don't want to build my business, my legal business. So I'm like, oh, thanks. And yeah, we're good. So we went over there, and of course, they brought out the wine, and we went to Cheers, and I said, we have something really special to cheers about today. I said, what? And we told them the story of Crossover. And he said, wait, I mean, we knew you did that financial thing, but tell us more about it. And so we had what conversation? What's it called? The B2B platform conversations, right? We had the B2B platform conversation. And this is an attorney who's very successful in what he does. And they go to lots of networking parties and dinners and all kinds of things. And his wife said, you know, I have wealth advisors come up to me all the time at these parties that we go to. And they all say about the same thing. Like, yeah, some of them are a little better at saying it than others, but they all say about the same thing. He said, I have never heard what you guys just said. It is so inspiring that you want to provide this information to everyone, from the receptionist to the CEO. What can we do to help? What can we do to help? We didn't ask them for their money. Not yet. And then we really weren't there for their money, right? Because that's what's genuine, right? You can see through it if it's not genuine. And I said, well, you know, I said, JD, you've got some company clients. We might be able to help some of them. And he said, I'm going to email you a list of every client. You look it up and tell me which ones you want an introduction to. Wow. We thought that was pretty good. And she looked at him and said, what are you talking about? You're going to introduce them to all of them. Oh, and by the way, what about your 3 other law partners and all of their clients?
Wow.
So what you're actually going to do, JD, is you're going to set up a lunch with Brett and Robin and your law partners, and you're all going to talk about how you're going to introduce them to all of the firm's clients. And I even almost missed that one because I thought she was talking about the firm, and I said, and I started telling an impact story of Wade, and I'm like, oh yeah, we've got other law firms, you know, Wade. And then she's like, no, 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 no. The 150 corporate clients of the firm is who I want to introduce you to. So by the way, number 1, we don't have enough people.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say,
In case anybody's wondering what this year's about, we do not have enough people. And when we learn these stories, when we share them in a moment where the relationship is ready for it, the inevitable result is how can I help you? The inevitable result of someone who's sophisticated and in business is no one else is doing this. And how can I help? And that's why putting in the time and energy of these conversations is so important. Because it's the exact same conversation that you're gonna have with the owner of the Mexican restaurant that you know, right? It's the exact same conversation that Tate's gonna have with a college student who's gonna turn out his father is at a law firm with 20 corporate clients. We don't know who. We don't know when. What we do know is we can be prepared for it. And we know that the conversations work. And when you've got that, that's a third day in all of our business. Wow. That makes sense? So let's spend some time and dig into these conversations. Okay.
amazing.
That's a good Thursday.
Wow.
And there's some interesting kind of pieces to that, just to put it in perspective. And that was, so one, just so we know, just some of this stuff is one, you don't have to be perfect in order to have the conversations. That's a really, really important part, because if we waited until we knew what we were doing in order to start the process, we wouldn't. Because we don't know all the things we're doing. Like, we don't know all the things on the structures and stuff like that, but we're rolling out what's called an MEP plan, which no one in Primerica has ever done, as it turns out. I'm talking to the head counsel, and he's like, okay, so will you teach us how you're doing this? Sure. You don't have to wait.
That's what an MEP.
Okay, so an MEP plan, right, just go through it. The reason what it is it's called a multiple employer plan, right? So this is a very particular 401k structure that works with companies. It's a little bit more complicated. It's the reason why we're able to actually get this is because Robin asked some questions, I asked some questions, we found out that the answers didn't align with what we thought it would be. We got on the phone with the people that needed to be. We showed vulnerability to the people who we didn't necessarily have to show vulnerability to, but said, look, I don't know how this works. I can act like I do, or you can help me. And they're like, well, let me help you. I'm like, all right, because I might need to look strong in front of the client, but I don't have to look strong in front of my partners. Which we have a tendency sometimes to flip that. We have a tendency to want to look smart to the people who know us, and we don't care what we look like to the people who don't. That's a misaligned goal expectation. Right? So, but you don't have to wait. And at the same time, you can't wait until you need it in order to improve your skill. So both things exist. I know people in Primerica that don't master the skills in the presentations because they don't need to deliver the skills in the presentations. And so they're like, I'll learn it when I need it. Right. Because Brett, you said it's okay that I don't have it in order to start. So I'll start until when I don't know, but I'll learn it when I need to. that make sense? You can't. Right? We didn't know all of the things that we were going to have to figure out, but we knew that there was a bunch of things we were going to have to figure out, so we needed to start where we stand and dramatically increase our skill on purpose. Look, my wife's really good at business development. She's really good at thinking on her feet. She's been doing it for a long time, like professionally. I'm really good at being able to find value. Like those are things that we're both good at. If we spent the last year personality relying because we didn't know where things were, we would have crossover. But we wouldn't have 8 of the conversations that we needed to have done that we could sit and train. Because our personality and our particular skill set probably would have gotten us here for the creation of the business. But not for the ability to go, okay, let me tell you why Thursday was just running the play. We're standing up here telling you the story about Thursday, and you're walking away going, wow, that's awesome. You guys are great. If we don't spend the last year building the systems and getting the duplicatable language down so that we can grow it at scale, we're impressing you today. Impressing you might get you to follow us because having people in your life that are successful is a good thing. But that doesn't encourage the fact that this was just a Thursday. When it's just a Thursday, you can have it just as well as we can have it. When it's we're that good or we're that special or our business or our experience or she's that smart or any of that stuff, there's the potential on the gap. Does that make sense? That's the power of where this is. So one, don't wait until you have it, but also don't wait until you need it to start. That's why we're going to run the way we're going to over the next 4 to 6 months. We're going to put in the time to get prepared. You're going to know, what do I got to do? How do I get somebody moving when I get them started? Before you have somebody. But hopefully the moment you get quadrant 1 down, you're like, well, shit, why don't I don't have to wait till I get through quadrant 4 to start running people through quadrant 1. Which means you're going to start running people through quadrant 1, studying quadrant 2. And then you're going to run people through 1 and 2, and you're going to be studying quadrant 3. You're not waiting until you get 1, 2, 3, and 4 down to be like, I think now I'm ready to try. You can. Does that make sense? The second thing to this, right, as we go through, we were talking about, right, goals. And Rob, you handled that, you explained that incredibly well, right? Because it was get wide and it was set goals. Question for you. Do any of you need to be told that you should set goals? Think, how many of you have known forever, you've had these conversations since you were wee little children, someone told you you should have a goal. In 3rd grade, you gotta have a goal. You gotta have a goal, right? The idea of, right, your daughters, they know they gotta have goals. This is not a new concept. So when you talk to someone about showing up and saying we gotta have goals, look, for 15 years, I showed up at Primerica meetings and here was the answer. You gotta get 50 people on your team. You gotta recruit 5 people a month. You gotta write 10 sales a month. From the stage, that's the declarative direction. And so people would write down, okay, cut your business meeting in half, and that's how much your production is. If you want, to have a $10,000 team, you got to have 20 to 25 people coming to your Saturdays. All right, and so the sentence is, I need 20 people coming to my Saturdays. That's the declarative sentence. The operational instruction is, I need 20 people on my Saturdays, and you walk out of the meeting going, man, we're clear. I know exactly what I got to do, right or wrong. Because if you're like, I got to have 20 people come to meetings, then I got to have 20 people come to the meetings. I know exactly what I got to do is I got to get 20 people come to the meetings. Makes sense, doesn't it? And so right now, wait for it, 700 offices just said that. And there's probably 25,000 people that wrote that down right now. Just, you can hear them put the exclamation point. They're looking at their partner going, man, I've heard that before, but man, I heard it today. And they're like, I'm in. I'm ready. And then the meeting will be over about 45 minutes, and they'll high five, and they'll do their chants, and they're excited, and they're like, I gotta get 20 people coming to my meeting. And then they're driving home going, wait, haven't we been trying to get people to come to our meetings for like the last 3 years? Yeah, but now we gotta get 20. See, there's a difference between I gotta set goals, and here's how you do it. And here's how you know if you're off pace. Because if you write up where you are, you identify and assess what you have, you develop a game plan, and then you execute on that plan. If after 90 days you don't have what you want, you know that you have a flaw in one of the 4 steps. And so you get to go back and go, was I clear on what I actually wanted? Well, I wasn't very clear on what I wanted. All right, well, if I'm not clear on what I want, can the plan I develop and that I'm executing get me there? No. Well, then I haven't. So yes, it's about setting goals, but everyone in the, if you tell someone to say, I'm going to help you set goals, they're going to be like, I know how to set goals. Whether they do or not, because they're going to be 20 people coming to the meeting. The power of White is facilitating the project of goals. It's a project-based goal-setting process, not a production-based goal. Right? Because the problem is, in those 700 offices that would hear, got to get 20 people to the meeting, there's a couple people that heard it, that put together 10 other conversations, and then in the next 90 days, they go from having 3 people to 20 people in their meetings because they do it on raw aggression, and then they stand up and they're like, man, 90 days ago, I was in this room, and I heard Bill say, you got to have 20 people come to Saturday, and then my partner and I, we went nuts, and we decided we were going to do it, and boom, now everyone stand, do me a favor, team, stand up, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 22 people, man, and last month we did $10,300, see guys? You got to get 20 people coming to your meeting, and it validates that model, but it's not true. It's not an instruction. It's not an operational instruction. That's the value prop. So when you think about why we use the language are tools built to facilitate that. See, everyone knows if you're going to do this, you got to have a budget. Like, that's not a new concept. Right? But the ability to say, what do you have and what do you need on your budget? What can you eliminate before you have to eliminate it? The power of your entrepreneurial budget is, if you went full time, what wouldn't you need? Well, I wouldn't need cable. Well, then we should think about, do you turn off cable now as you're planning your entrepreneurial budget, or do you wait until you can't afford it to turn it off? Because if you wait till you can't afford it necessarily, then you resent it. Then your family says, oh, your business isn't doing well, so we had to turn off our cable. But that's not actually the emotional stand and strength of where we come from. So the entrepreneurial budget has the psychological impacts of what it is we're trying to get accomplished, not just a budgeting tool. And we'll get into that significantly more in a couple weeks when we spend a lot of time on this section, being able to go through that process. But it's important for you to start thinking about, oh, as you're learning this, there's a reason for it that might be a little bit deeper than your understanding. Start getting curious on that and then be able to convey it. Does that make sense? Because the last part to this as we go through, one of the most important things for everything on Thursday, one of the single most important things for everything on Thursday was we walked in and sit with Jamie, did we need to make any money? No. We had the conversation of crossover. Did we need to close that business? No. We went to dinner on Thursday night. Did we need to get their assets? See, Robin talked about the fact that, right, did we go in to write a sale? No. Are we going to? Of course. Right? Are we going to get, right, the lawyer's money at some point? You said we didn't go in for money. At some point we will. At some point it's an inevitable byproduct. Does that make sense? But this is a really key component. The reason someone's job's their asset, the reason that we use the tools that we have, the reason that we save, we get the capital reserve, we get the runway, we get the tools in place to be able to do the things that we need to do, is that psychologically and emotionally, we want to be able to walk into each of those scenarios operating from strength and clarity. We were closing in every one of those conversations. We weren't selling in any one of those conversations. We were closing to the next step. Whatever that next step is. So, and I want you to start thinking about this because, one, nothing we did on Thursday was different than anything that anyone in this room was going to learn and master to do in the next 6 to 12 months. Now, you'll do it at your level, you'll do it in your relationships, and you'll do it through your personality. But make sure you understand. Be excited because it possibly affects all of us, and it's simply a validator that if it can be done here, it can be done anywhere. Now, let's put some things into perspective with this, right? I believe in Gladstone's 10,000 hours. Norman Gladwell talked about, right, the ability to master something, right? There's all these research, right? It's pianists, it's artists, it doesn't matter, right? There's the scale of this good to great concept, and they couldn't find anybody that put in less than 10,000 hours that was a master, and they couldn't find anyone who put in 10,000 hours that wasn't a master in any industry. I don't care if it's woodworking, I don't care if it's juggling. A 30-year process of studying. Think about the certainty of what we're saying here. There was no industry and no example, none, of anyone who hadn't put in 10,000 hours that would be considered a master. There wasn't a savant that woke up and said, I'm a master after a minute. Now, they might have had a propensity, they might have there are really young kids that are good at math, and but guess what they spend a lot of their time doing? Math. They're building their 10,000 hours. Does that make sense? So on one, they couldn't find one, not one, that had developed a master that hadn't put in 10,000 hours. Now that might intimidate somebody. Here's the part that motivated me. They couldn't find one that hadn't put in 10,000 hours that was a master, but they couldn't find one that had put in 10,000 hours that wasn't a master. See, Thursday, my wife, from a business development and a relationship strategic person, has put in 30,000 hours in her professional career at that skill. Like, she's genius level. That's a reality. You know why that's really good? Because she's in all of our lives. And so we get to teach and develop and run through that process. I'm probably at 6,000 hours of concentrated effort on some of that stuff. I got a lot of work to do. But that's still okay. Is this making any sense? Why do we have this conversation? Right? We haven't because we're starting the work. Is it going to take you 50 years? Hell no. A lot of you have put in, so in our language, in our process, you put in thousands of hours in your thinking of what we're doing. That's checking the box. Now, we've got to go, how do we take from thinking about it to saying? That's a skill. We engage and we move through this process. So part of this, this is incredibly motivating to me, and I'm reading some of your faces, and I'm like, or Robin would be like, so I had them really excited, and then you lost. Guys, I guess there's two reasons I'm having this conversation. One, we said we were gonna build a system in licensing where we could look somebody in the eye and say, if you want to pass this test, we will get you to pass this test. And I truly believe with everything in me that we have about 70% of that system in place. And by the end of this year, we will be able to look anybody in the eye and say, if you want to pass these tests and you do what we talk about doing, you will pass. If you want to do it on your own, that's fine. We'll create a positive, supportive environment. You don't have to run our play. But here's what we know. If you want to pass these tests and you run our play, you will pass these exams. There's no office in the country that can say that. I genuinely believe that we can say it with certainty today, and in the next 6 to 12 months, we'll be able to say it with authority. Right? I believe that. It's the same thing. We have amazing and unique opportunities that are coming. If you grow your skills and you learn these conversations, we will keep your ass busy. We will help you get profitable, and we will help you develop to whatever level it is that you want to develop. That's a certainty. Over the next year, we will be able to communicate it with authority. That's why this works the way it does. Now, I can't get you to study the way we know studying works. If you don't do that, our certainty and authority crap doesn't work. Well, I just don't learn that way. Okay, that's fine. But my certainty and authority doesn't work either. Right? You know you better than I know you. And so you have to be the authority and the certainty on you. And if the authority and certainty on you says, I do this and these are the tangible results and I can measure them, I've passed every test, I've taken 20 tests in the last 5 years, I've passed every single one of them doing it this way, don't let us screw you up. But if you haven't taken a test in the last 5 years, the last 10 years, and you've never been in this industry, you might like how you study, but it doesn't necessarily mean it works. There's a difference between those two things. I like losing weight by sitting on the couch. That is way more fun. It just doesn't work. Unless I'm duct taped to the couch and I don't eat. Then I will lose weight. And die. Right? If someone came around and fed me like protein bars every 6 hours, I would be alive and I would lose weight. But I'm taped to a damn couch. Same process. It's going, look. I love this. In my professional philosophical life, this is the single most important safety net for me. Now, I tell this to some folks, and they want to run screaming. I don't understand. This is everything we're building. This is skill versus talent. What do you mean? Skills can be learned. If skills can be learned, skills can be mastered. If skills can be mastered, skills can be taught. If skills can be taught, they can be learned, they can be learned, they can be mastered. They can be taught, they can be learned, they can be mastered. I was talking to Wade earlier, and we were talking about, let's just say, and you did this, right? Let's say you get into a conversation with somebody like the couple we went to dinner with, and they're like, man, that's awesome, and you don't know the next 7 steps. Oh God, I don't know what the next 7 steps, so I'm not going to have the conversation I'm having. How many of us have ever been, I don't know what to do at the end, so I'm not going to get started. You understand how easy it would have been, right? They're like, oh my God, you got to introduce them to everyone for us to be able to say, you know, it's funny, you talk about, I would love for you. Can I set up a lunch with Brett and Robin? Can I set up a coffee with, I want you to spend some time with her. Could you get yourself into a situation where you're having a conversation like that? Derek, you're having a conversation with someone that's run a company, you're like, man, you know that there's 9 other conversations that you just don't have the skill yet developed to have, that they still need to have, but do you have enough, could you develop enough of a relationship and understand the premise enough to where that when you pique their interest, you can say, man, if I could set up a coffee, would you have a cup of coffee with a guy named Brett? You don't have to be all things. You have to allow your ego to not get in the way. Now, that's not an excuse, in my opinion, for you to not push yourself to learn the next set of conversation lessons. But that's our business. Wade asked the question. He's like, it was a great question. He's like, do you see, because of what's going on with this, right, and everything that's going on, do you see in the next couple of years that we're going to start, you know, aggressively competing for enterprise level 401ks, like the Jive crossover, like in that space? Like, do you see us competing there? My answer is no, because that's not our business. Do I see us getting it? Yeah. I believe within 5 years, our organization will have 10 to 15, 350 to 500 people plans. And 8 of them will come from Robin. And the reason is when we get one down, her market, her relationship Rolodex is influencers in that space. And when we've locked in Jive, and then we've locked in Crossover, and then we get 2 or 3 more, that impact story becomes a whole lot easier for someone that has those relationships and those skills. So, and is Robin the only one that's going to be able to do that? No. All of us could recruit somebody, right? Who, if you recruit right, I was talking about Todd, like if you recruited someone who's in professional software sales at an enterprise level, and they learned our premise and they're making $300,000 at their job and they realize they can make $1 million here, and we spend 2 years getting them licensed and skills, guess who their market is? People that are influencers in that. Are we going to have the impact? Are we going to have the system and the structure to support it? Of course we are. But that's not our business. Our business is, what's your edge? What are your relationships? What opportunities do you have? 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 What's your market? What's your skill? Where are you with that? And how do we grow your company by letting the people in your life understand the mission you're on and the tools, resources, and support systems you have access to? Because, let's put this all in perspective, none of these things I did not find Theater Unleashed. Wade has access to like a pretty significant theater program in Los Angeles that he's going to develop a wellness program for, and when it does, they're going to have relationships to 7 or 8 different companies, and there's a legitimate opportunity for a creative side of Wade to have a foothold, right? He's on the board of directors, that he could over the next couple of years develop an entire platform that literally no one else in this room would have access to. I did not do that. Oh, Wrench, you suck. You're right. Not me. But it's in my business. Fascinating. Sue has spent the last 4 or 5 years really cultivating, developing the community relationships, has connected with a lot of the powers that be in Santa Clarita, has been connected within the school systems, right? Is starting to get College of the Canyons and a platform and a certification, and there's bumps in the roads, and all of a sudden she came to me, she's like, this one person has this, but I know over the next 6 to 12 months I can shift the mindset, so now it's cultivating and working within the relationship, where in the next 2 or 3 years there's a legitimate opportunity for the Primerica Wellness Integration Certification Plan through the College of the Canyons, and once that's done, the ability to lift this up and put this into any community college in California, right, is legitimate. In the next 5 years, we could have a certification program connected with Sue and our Primerica businesses with the community credit, right, for the community reach out to be able to facilitate that. That's unbelievable, isn't it? I didn't do it. I don't have the relationships, I don't, none of it. We built the language and the systems work together, that's Sue. But you know what's really cool? Sue's in my business. Dawn's been PTA and developments and relationships, one of the leads at the schools, connected to the special needs and all of Santa Clarita, the opportunity to have a platform, right, is starting to develop a language, be able to connect relationships as her skill grows over the next year and she starts taking over this stuff. Her strategic conversations are growing, her legitimacy is moving in, right? So Dawn has the opportunity to lay a teacher platform down the line that could go into the Santa Clarita schools, and once that gets leveraged out, could go anywhere. It's unbelievable. I don't know. Robin's got a Rolodex and relate. I didn't do any of it. See, if you have a particular competitive advantage, you get to leverage and develop that competitive advantage. If you don't, I don't. But I can cultivate people who do. And so my competitive advantage can be the cultivation of people who have competitive advantages. See, if I'm threat-based, I minimize people that are better at things than I am. But that's not our business. Melissa, you might be hearing all this going, well, I don't have that, I don't have that. No, you have the ability to connect and relate with people. And when you develop the ability to connect and relate with people and tell the story to the people in your life, you have no idea who they know and what competitive advantages the people they know will hand deliver. We have no idea. Our business isn't linear. And some of you are sitting there going, talk about me, because I got one, I got one, I got one. You do. Foster it. Identify what it is and pursue it. Get good at telling the stories. Get clear at the language. By the way, if you notice, the people that I talked about have done the most practicing of the language in their skills. And so it's easier to identify where they are in their journey, because Sue can come up and articulate very well what we do. Wade can come up and articulate well what we do. Dawn's starting to learn to articulate what we're doing. They're all at different phases, and so when they're better at their skills, we start figuring out what advantages do you have and how do you pursue them in order to increase your skill. Because this is just a math equation. You want to change your life? What do you spend your 10,000 hours on? What is it? Why did we sit down and say, the first 90 days we got 4 goals? We are going to get this quadrant down. Why? Because when you know how to get somebody started, and you know how to talk about getting someone started, you're excited to get somebody started. You're going to develop the business-to-business platform conversation, because your ability to be at a barbecue, to be at a dinner, to have a conversation, to be able to plug it in, right, is a fundamental key component to being able to have someone see and understand what it is you're a part of. When you can understand the build to sell mentality, you have the ability to attract people, let them know that there's a place for them. Whether it's short-term, long-term, mid-term, where is it? It's an explanation for your market as to why you're doing this. Where does it fit? If you've never been in financial services and now you're in this business, you need to explain to them why you're doing it. And so the opportunity to have the language component is really important. And then the managed accounts and the strategic partnership is our distinguisher. It allows us to leverage the access gap to be able to tell the story and to operate from strength in a product-based conversation that is still intellectually stimulating and process-driven. Right? On Thursday, this, and that were all leveraged. All 4 of the conversations All 4 of them were leveraged at an incredibly high level for Thursday to happen. That's the beauty. The other fun thing is, there wasn't a 5th. I didn't walk away going, shit, now we gotta teach this. There are more things to learn, but if I talk about root foundational components of what's going on, is that if in the next 90 days you get these things down and then we just dial them in and you get better at them, and you look for feedback, and you realize the perfection's the enemy. Feedback's your friend. Oh, that didn't go the way we wanted it to. All right, that went okay. Here, let me get stronger. Let me get better. Well, I've done that before. Well, do it again, but you're better today. This is our, sorry, I forgot what was the other baseline. But see, there's nothing that was on, that's not on these 4 that didn't create our Thursday. So we're not wasting your time. We're going to start with the simplest, and we're going to build the more complex. Do you want to change your life? That ultimately, guys, here's our biggest problem. And then we're going to get into the training. Our biggest problem is if we're not careful. We've spent 7 years to build the system. And if we're not careful, it's going to look like a personality business. If we're not careful, it's going to look like, well, Brett and Robin are really good at this. Well, Sue's amazing at this. Well, Wade just has that personality. Well, Don's been at team. And it's really easy to minimize our contribution to our family's future growth if it's personality. We said we wanted to build a business where the system is a 10 so you don't have to be. And at the same time, if you choose to be a 10, the New England Patriots have a 10 system. On a scale of 1 to 10, their system is 10. Tom Brady runs it at a level 10. Jimmy Garoppolo ran it at a 6. Because the system was a 10. If there's folks in the room, if Tage wakes up one day and says, I want to run this as a 10, he's going to have vastly different results than if he's like, well, it's a 10, all I got to do is be a 2. If you run it as a 2, it's going to deliver for you. If you choose to be a 10 at running it, it'll change your life. We've delivered. I'll be honest with y'all. Like, we said we were going to do that, and I didn't. Like, it's one of those I know we're going to, and we won't stop. It's done. Like, it's going to keep getting better, but the shit we're putting together and the systems that's in place and where this is, you run this stuff, it's going to change your life. If you show up and get your securities licenses and just aren't a fool, we have so many damn appointments and so many things that are going on, we're going to need you to help us even if I don't like you. If you're a fool, I won't waste my time. I won't convince you. But if you're just like, shit, tell me what to say, right? What movie is it? Wolf of Wall Street. If you learn these words, like, it's going to come to that level. 4. The problem is, there's 15 of us. Fear is you don't have 40 people running the system and saying, man, all I did was learn it. For your confidence to say, it's worth me putting in the time, energy, love, passion. It's worth pushing through the uncomfort. It's worth being vulnerable and actually going and doing it because it will deliver. You don't have 50 examples of people from different backgrounds and different ethnicities and different relationships and different that have all found a way to win through our system to encourage you in the moments where you want to sit on the couch. We don't have that. And so the dilemma is, if we don't get a group of people to embrace it from the vision in their head and they see what's possible and be those examples, we will constantly be in the convincing business. And that's one of my biggest apprehensions. We handed this out on Wednesday and went over it. It is our business. It is this first box. It is the fundamental component of the first box. It's how you get somebody started from the tangible steps. The question is, what did you do with it? From Wednesday to this morning, what did you do? We said we're going to build from Wednesday to Saturday and Saturday to Wednesday. We are going to use, by the way, just as a reminder, this Wednesday we don't have the meeting, we have it on Thursday. Okay? We're going to go, we'll roll out next Saturday the dates. I think it's going to be the second week of for February, so basically be 3 weeks. It might be the last week. We're going to kind of play through some things and kind of go through when we're going to have the next meeting in the business. So we'll get that dialed in this week. This week got a little crazy. I wasn't expecting Thursday. But we'll put that together. This is your opportunity. The reason we started this was the sentence is not, I can't be the leader of our growth. I can't be the leader of our growth. We can be the leader of creating the systems and the language and the tools. Like that's my job. That's our job. And we're doing it. And it's okay because that's not a duplicatable system. Building the language and tools, the art of building it is not a duplicatable, nor should it be a duplicatable skill. That's a waste of time. I have some people going, well, I want to be a part of it. Yeah, but you suck. Why would you want to be a part of something you're not good at? Go be good at what you're good at, because it's a full picture. Why would you say that? Because there's lots of things I suck at. Can we just acknowledge we don't all have to be good at all the same things? There's plenty of validation in the world to get validation from the things we're good at, and let's leverage the hell out of the people. Do you know how easy it is? I've been in business primarily. I've been primarily for 23 years. I'm really good. I've built a really good organization. Do you know how easy it would be for me to systematically and inadvertently, but still purposefully undermine Robin? Our growth, giant crossover, the opportunities that we've got, I'm not growing our organization in the point of relationship. Y'all come to realize that? As a man, as a business owner, or someone who's been doing this business for a long time, could that be threat? I mean, she doesn't know what she's doing. She's been on appointments. I mean, she said, you understand how easy it would be to do that? Just for my ego? But if I do that, at some point, Robin's like, either gets offended, which she wouldn't. What Robin would do, if I acted that way, what Robin would do is go like, oh, guys, I guess I'm doing something that's making Brett uncomfortable. Let me pull back from creating jive and crossover because obviously this is creating uncomfort for him, and I don't want us to have that dynamic. So I'll just not be who I am in our Primerica business. Not consciously, subconsciously. How does that help us? I'm not great yet at that stuff. I'll get there. Might be 20 years from now. Shit, I got time. It's a fun project. I'm a whole lot better today than I was 3 years ago at understanding what's going on because I've worked my ass off on it. Hard. I am not the same person I was 2 years ago on this stuff. I have no idea what I'm doing. And I'm like, all right, well, let's figure this shit out. Let's ask questions. Let me explain my relationship with my wife when it comes to this. Rob, how would you do this? This is how I do it. Really? It's funny because I would have thought this. I know you would have, and that's why you do it that way. Oh, you're right. I'm looking at it in a way that's forcing me to behave in a way that's not getting me what it is that you're trying to get. Huh. So I need to change how I'm thinking about it in order to change my actions in order to create a different result. Duh. Well, sometimes I'm a little slow. So I'm not the expert on me when it comes to doing something I've never done before. That's a really fascinating place to be at. But you know what? I sat in a house with an incredibly successful attorney who makes a significant amount of money. And we laughed and joked about index funds and managed accounts and portfolios and business strategies and Primerica and our leverage and our on-demand community and the opportunity to leverage our resources and I had an incredibly fun professional conversation with someone who's been working with businesses for 25 years. And I was a peer. And my income is a third of what it was when I was at dinner with somebody at Acapulco's, right? And when I hadn't seen them a long time, and they're like, so what do you do? I was number 23 in the country, made $45,000 that month, and I couldn't explain to them what I did, and I felt like shit. And I walked to, and the next day I walked into my RVPs and I said, this would happen. Hey, Sue, what would you say? And she looked at me and she's like, Brett, if you don't know what you'd say, how am I supposed to? Remember that conversation? That was a fully fun and uplifting conversation. But that only happens by realizing we have an opportunity to change. We have an opportunity to figure out where do we want to go and what resources and tools we have. And if I stand in front of you and I try to be all things to all people, or specifically all things to you, one, that's fraudulent. Two, I undermine the best asset this organization will ever have, and that's my wife. And I limit your opportunity to change. Because when you're new or young in the business, I give you all the room in the world. As you get stronger and older and more veterans, my standards change. I start holding a harder line with less oxygen. Forgiveness worthy. It's not fair. It's incredibly fair. Because when you're new, you gotta have a wide berth. And when we get stronger, better, our moments matter. When you're new in the business, you get to talk to people in your life. You're like, man, I'm just practicing this thing. This is awesome. Can I come back next week? And they're like, well, you're my friend, so yes. So what did you do? It's funny. I started today's meeting going, we are going to get in groups and role play this. In talking to a couple people this morning, I didn't feel that the work that I had thought would have been done over the last couple of days had been done. And we're at a precious moment where if we put people in the room that weren't here on Wednesday, and we put them with people who were, and the people that were didn't move the needle and show the people who weren't that it was moved, we actually hurt the entire room. Do you want to be a part of what's about to happen? We're building the business platform for a $4 billion company that has no idea what they're doing and no interest in it. That means they're gonna leave our ass alone. I'm pretty well educated, my wife's incredibly well educated, and because she's in my life, I'm getting incredibly well educated on business and understanding, and we're working with people that haven't been trained and work with incredibly professional people, which means we're learning how to speak a language that they don't understand, which allows us to have tremendous influence on a level that they've never been influenced on. These are just the facts of what's going on. Which means we, over the next 18 months, get to design the systems in place. Why is that important? Because if we build the plans and the systems support the plans, you understand there's no resistance in the plans? Let me share, because I'm trying to get you to recognize the opportunity that we have. Because I think that's the piece that we're missing. Is people walking out of here going, oh, you know those moments where you're like, shit, today matters? So I'm going to tell you a 3-minute story about a conversation. So a guy named Tom Rowley is a mucky-muck, right, really smart, good guy at Invesco. He and I are very, very good friends. And we're telling him the story about what's going on, and he's all blown away. And we're talking about we want to work with the 529s because we think that there's a way. We've got our part-timers. We want to be able to have this process, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, you got to meet this guy named John Saxton. I'm like, okay. So he connects us to John. It takes John a month to get back. Get on the phone with John. John runs the 529 and annuity products for Invesco. Pretty significant space. We're having a conversation, and John's like, so Rowley was telling me a little bit, what are you working on? Funny you should ask. And I go in our business-to-business platform conversation. Why? Because we're doing something, and it's about an opportunity to create clarity. Why? Because I'm a professional recruiter. And if I can get John on our side and emotionally understanding, who's John interested in, me or John? John's interested in John. John's in the sales business. I want John to help us. What's the best way for us to get John to help us? Ask for his help, or get John to realize that if John's a part of what we're a part of and what we're a part of is big, John's life's going to change. Right? We picked up $1.4 million so far this year in investments. We have 8 different accounts, right, in terms of this. This morning, I sent an email to Scott Cobb. Hey, bud, I just wanted to thank you for some of the training we've done. Man, we picked up $1.4 million because of you. You're changing our folks' lives. John, to be honest with you, Scott, almost none of the money came from the conversations of the people that Scott was having the conversation with. But Scott doesn't need to know that because Scott's changed. He gave me some pieces. We went through it ways over the different folks that are going on. He's going to start working with the rest of the RVPs. Why? Because I want Scott emotionally connected to the fact that we're going to make Scott value. Right. So I'm talking to John. And Invesco has an institutional product, and we're working on this, and I'm like, okay, how's this work? And I'm asking questions. And I'm like, I'm working with John Watson. He's like, okay, here. He goes, and I'm like, but we need, how do I get my agents credit? Because if I sign the company, then it's my account, but I want my part-timers to be able to earn some money on this stuff. And he's like, well, we're starting to think about this. What if you could figure out how to get Primerica to make you a beta user? And we'll build a pilot program for you where you can attach a second associate. So essentially you sit with someone and there's a drop down and your associate gives them your solution number and they put in the solution number and automatically attaches their name and stuff, so it's your account, but then it becomes their account. You think Primerica would pilot this? Because if so, we can build that infrastructure for you. Well, let me call Mr. Watts. Hey, John, I got a question for you. If we could get Invesco to build a pilot program for us, that this is what they do, this is what's going on, do you think maybe we could get Primerica to say, hey, you're going to roll out this product, why don't we do this? Because any company with over 250 people, not participants, 250 people, If you think about the sentence just for a second, any company with 250 employees can sign up to this plan for free, and the investments are NAV. So the employees don't have to pay a sales charge for money going in to their college accounts. And Invesco works with the payroll company, so the company literally doesn't have to do anything. They sign up on the website that Invesco signs up and creates. They connect with the payroll company. They tell the payroll company what to take out. They could take electronic go through. It's all done in the back end. It doesn't force the company to do anything. And it's at a net asset value cost, so they don't even have to pay a sales charge. If it's less than 250 people, then they have to pay a sales charge, but if all the other work is done.
And the company gets to advertise.
The company gets to advertise it, they get to market us as a connection to be able to develop. It's an onboarding relationship to be able to connect. It doesn't cost the company anything. And we're in the process right now of becoming the only pilot program in Primerica as our organization. When we talk about the fact that the opportunities are going to be presented and we are going to be able to do amazing things, this isn't a little thing. But that happens because John Watts knows our business-to-business platform conversation. We've been able to deliver. He understands that we're taking this credible. We've got the access support in place. And Zaxton, right, when we can have, but this is all it was. It wasn't special, guys. It was, we developed a relationship. Tom Rowley's in our baseline. We have our skills, and we talked about the business-to-business platform. That's all it was. It wasn't something special. It wasn't magic fairy dust. It wasn't like, and it was me. Like, and I only say it because I'm not the greatest in the relationship development. I'm not like that's not my area of expertise. I worked hard on it. But Arsenal was just this, and that. That was Wednesday, so I guess Wednesday was pretty good too. What do you want? What do you want over the next 12 to 18 months? What changes do you want? What opportunities do you want? Where do you want to fit in this? What part do you want to be? Do you want to come along for the ride? Do you want to be a valuable contributor? Do you want to be on the bleeding edge helping create? Do you want to be running a pilot program out the side? Expanding the scope and the vision? Do you want to hang around and see if we pull this shit off? There's a space for everybody. But not making a decision is a decision. Not making a choice is a choice. None of us will accidentally get rich. None of us accidentally lose weight. None of us accidentally create freedom. Where do you think? And it starts with what you can control. Your attitude and your activity. Everything's changed and nothing's different. Because I'll be honest with you, at 10:55 on a Saturday morning, there's 6,000 offices, Bob. I said earlier there's about 700 that said one thing and we said something completely different. In about 3,000 of the offices at 10:55, I'll bet about 3,000 of the offices said the only thing you can control is your attitude and your activity. Nothing's changed. What's your activity? What's your W? What's your I? What's your D? What's your E? What project are you working on right now? What is your Q1 project? Are you attacking it? Are you hoping it happens? Are you whining about it? Are you wishing about it? Are you working about it? You don't have to be perfect to start, but you can't wait till you need it to start it. this is our opportunity. We will be the #1 securities license team in the state of California in 2018. We will be the #1 licensing recruit to code ratio in the state of California in 2018. Sorry. I believe we'll be the #1 investment organization in the state of California in 2018. I also believe that anyone in this room, 17 months from right now, we've got a convention in Atlanta, and anyone in this room could walk across that stage as the regional vice president. I didn't say everyone. I said anyone. You all have your life licenses. You're all in the process of getting your security licenses. Every person in this room has the opportunity and access to the tools. What will it take? An understanding of the math. You don't have to be 10,000 hours to go RUP. You just have to fall in love with it. The longer it takes us to fall in love with this, the longer it'll take us to go RUP. The last thing I said, I've said 1,000,000 times. It takes a year to go regional vice president. I don't know how long it'll take you to start listening. It'll take a year from the moment you start listening. It took me a year to go RUP. 1 year. It took me 3 years to listen. Nothing's changed. Except everything. So let's have some fun. Let's let them know. So no meeting. We'll be around this whole week, but no meeting on Wednesday, meeting on Thursday. And then we'll blow this thing out. If you guys have questions, if everything, let's let them know. Come next Saturday. You guys are going to hear from Bob and Don. They got some cool things they're working on and talking about kind of that next level stuff in terms of implementation and things that are going. So we're going to work together. Really, really excited. Let's have some fun. Let them know it's all about.
Yes.
What?